At night, they would sometimes shoot a lot. We wanted to leave in the morning, but there was a huge crowd, so we flew out at night.
Like many Western powers, Russia has been keen to establish a foothold in Libya. But as the nation descends into chaos, the only option left is to flee. Neve Barker, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
Well, Muammar Gaddafi has always kept his family close, with his sons an integral part of his power structure. Perhaps the most enigmatic of them is Saif al-Islam. Many in the West came to see him as something of a reforming influence, but his dramatic appearance on Libyan TV on Sunday night in defence of his father has shattered many of those illusions. Barnaby Phillips reports.
He was the charming face of the Gaddafi regime, a man who loved art.
This kind of face was the beginning of my journey with colours.
A man who wooed the world with talk of reform and the promise of access to Libya's wealth. So Saif al-Islam's rambling televised speech came as a shock to those foreign admirers. He said drug addicts, foreigners and Islamists were plotting against his father, who would fight to the last bullet. This is the London School of Economics, the LSE. Saif studied here. His charity has given it money. But academics who knew and liked him are now appalled by his speech in support of a brutal regime.
Here was a man, I think, under huge stress and personal circumstances, now torn apart by this tension between, on the one hand, loyalty to his father and family, and on the other hand, the reform of his country. This was almost a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions being played out in front of us. And when he came to make his final judgment, he made the wrong one.
This is the library at LSE, and inside we managed to find a copy of Saif al-Islam's doctoral dissertation, which he submitted in 2008, more than 400 pages long. It's entitled "The Role of Civil Society in the Democratization of Global Governance Institutions." Let me just show you a highlight or two. He talks about the problems of citizens who live in undemocratic states where governments are authoritarian, abusive, and unrepresentative of their people's real interests. This man has tracked Saif's financial dealings, in particular his role in setting up a fund called the Libyan Investment Authority.
It's now worth about $150 billion, and vast numbers of financial institutions from London and around the world have been trooping to its doors, trying to get a piece of that action. And one of the ways in which they have been doing that is trying to make contact with Saif al-Islam or his friends, because they believe that he is one of the gatekeepers for that fund.
At the LSE, the students are upset about the ties between their university and the son of a dictator. But there are many others now wondering if it was such a good idea to do business with Saif al-Islam. Barnaby Phillips, Al Jazeera, London.
It's a bit of an insight into the character there of Saif al-Islam. That is the very latest from here in Europe. Back now to David, who of course is in Doha. David.
Felicity, thank you very much indeed. Staying on the subject of Libya, let's talk to Hossein Musrati. He was the second secretary at the Libyan embassy in China before he resigned on the 17th of February. Joins me on the line now from Beijing. I know, Mr. Musrati, we're going to have this translated because you don't speak English, but tell me first the reasons why you quit.
Hello.
Mr. Musrati, it's David Foster here.
Thank AlJazeera, the English speaking AlJazeera, and pay my condolences to those who were killed in our beloved Libya. What's happening in Libya at the moment is as follows. People lived for about 42 years suffering from poverty, injustice and corruption, and now has revolted and demonstrated in peaceful demonstrations. They were fired upon and then bombarded with airstrikes, but he is not and will never surrender. what actually has been reported about the West's interests and the American interests that will be endangered in Libya, and the idea that there will be an Islamist regime. This is a repeated refrain that doesn't hold true anymore, and it's just fabrications and lies. We are insisting, as Libyans, on having good relations with the world, and specifically with the United States and Europe.
It appears to me, Mr. Maserati, that there are a lot of people now who used to work for Colonel Gaddafi, yourself included, who think now's a good time to distance themselves from him.
Could you repeat the question, please?
All these years the Gaddafi's been in power, and very few people stood up and said what they thought of him. Isn't it rather convenient that people like yourself and others are now saying what a bad man he is? Now it looks as though he's going to perhaps lose power.
We do not oppose him in person. We oppose his policies, his injustice, his tyranny. Because now, as far as we're concerned, it represents fascism and represents the Hitler's a policy like Hitler's policy through what he does of destruction and killing of innocent people and violating all sanctities of Libyans. Using mercenaries who've been paid and been brought to Libya in order to wipe out, to commit genocide against innocent unarmed people. For that reason, we have talked and we've criticized from the first day when people were killed and attacked in Libya.
Why did nobody decide to speak out against him when he ordered the bombing of a German nightclub, when his regime supplied arms to the IRA and innocent people lost their lives then? Why is it only now?
There is a problem at the moment. Now things have turned upside down. The Libyan people is criticizing Gaddafi, and now Europe and America are supporting him. We are now being bombed, fired upon, and he is the one who committed all those acts of bombings in the nightclubs. And people are supporting him now in the West.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. That's Hossein Maserati, formerly the Second Secretary for the Libyan government in Beijing, resigned a few days ago, giving us his opinions on where Gaddafi has failed. Let's get some news from cyberspace. Imran's here.
Thanks, David. Well, like you say, cyberspace is in overdrive when it comes to Libya. Now, you can imagine it's very difficult filtering out what can be seen as accurate and what is simply rumour and opinion. Now, here, what we endeavour to